Now, Douglas, before you go, you've done it now. You've gone and penned a piece about toxic femininity for The Spectator. We've heard plenty about toxic masculinity, but it really isn't. It's almost taboo to be critical of femininity. In fact, we're told the world's problems would probably be solved if we were all just a bit more compassionate and had a bit more empathy and had a bit more feminine traits. Do you disagree?
Yes, I very much disagree. I mean, if you take the view, as seems our societies have decided to take, that masculinity has toxic traits. Now, this is itself debatable. But if you say there are certain toxic traits in masculinity, things that men should be wary of doing in the public sphere, manners of behavior and so on, it's always presented as if the answer to everything is feminine. But of course, if you do take this line of argument, then it should be recognized that there are certain things pushed as feminine traits in our society, which themselves can be deeply, deeply toxic. And the most interesting one is the one you just mentioned there, is, for instance, the presumption, and whether it's Jacinda Ardern or whether it's Angela Rayner in the UK, there's this Kamala Harris, for that matter. There is this presumption that if we just had more empathy, everything would be better. And they present empathy as a particularly feminine trait, which is itself is sort of wildly sexist. But let's pass over that for a moment. But what's interesting about it is, and I give the example of two things that happened in the UK within a week: the decision to decriminalize abortions after 6 months, which means a child in the womb with a viable chance of surviving outside of the womb can be killed. And this was presented to Parliament as a case of having more empathy for the mothers who find themselves at 8 months wanting to abort their child, and more. And then at the same week, another female Labour MP presented the bill for assisted dying, otherwise known as euthanasia, or choose the date on which you want to die, and the state will help you. This argument, too, was presented solely on terms of empathy, compassion, and understanding. There was almost no analysis or a serious rigor about whether elderly men and women mightn't feel pressured by not being a burden on their families, or not being a burden on the sacred welfare state, and much more. That was all pushed aside, and the bill was voted through, as with the issue of post 6 months abortions, all in the language of empathy, understanding, and much more. But just consider that in these two cases, life in the UK was truncated at both ends in those days by Parliament, and parliamentarians always presenting themselves as filled with compassion. If we are going to live in a society where we want to be alive to toxic traits, we should be alive to them from whichever direction they come from. So I don't doubt that some people will be triggered by that, but reality, as we know, is often triggering.
Reality can be triggering, and I'm expecting just a wave of outrage on X and other social media platforms coming your way. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Great pleasure as always, Rita.